students, today we will learn about the microbial spoilage of fruits, vegetables and their products. As you know that fruits and vegetables are nutritionally rich with respect to many nutrients like vitamins, minerals, fibers and phytochemicals. However, their seasonal nature, geographical and climatic constraints in their production demands preservation for longer durations. Now, let us know what is the nutritional composition of raw fruits and vegetables. It is primarily the water which is present in the ratio of 85 to 95%. Carbohydrates are present in the form of simple sugars like glucose, fructose, oligosaccharides like inulin, fructooligosaccharides, glucooligosaccharides, etc. They also contain polysaccharides, for example, starch, cellulose and pectin. Sugars are present in the fruits as free form or they may be conjugated with compounds like anthocyanins, flavor compound, etc. There are also certain organic acids like malic acid, citric acid, tartaric acid, succinic acid, etc. In all, these are an important source of energy. They also impart taste, flavor and they can make calcium more soluble. Proteins occur in very low concentrations in fruits, but there are certain vegetables which are rich with respect to the protein content. Some examples are bean, peas, mung bean sprout, leafy vegetable, etc. Fruits also contain phenolics like anthocyanin, flavonoids, glycosides, coumarin derivatives, esters of hydrocinamic acid and these collectively impart antioxidant properties. Fruits are rich source of vitamin like vitamin A and C and they also contain a variety of minerals like phosphorus, potassium, etc. There are certain properties of fruits and vegetables which is responsible for their spoilage and these can be categorized into intrinsic properties or factors or extrinsic properties or factors. Now, let us have a look of what are the intrinsic properties of fruits and vegetables. The first important parameter is the pH. Fresh fruits and vegetables have low buffering capacity due to which there is a drastic drop in the pH which takes place during the fermentation process. The spoilage of acidic food which are having a pH less than 4.5 is caused by a variety of organisms which include yeast, molds and certain acid tolerant bacteria. The second important parameter which is grouped in the intrinsic properties is water of activity. Water of activity means the water requirement for the growth of microorganism and it is expressed best in terms of a parameter which is known as water of activity. Each microorganism has a maximum, optimum and minimum water activity which is required for their growth. Bacteria, for example, need a water activity which should be greater than 0.91, whereas yeast and molds require a lower water activity. It ranges in 0.88 to 0.80 respectively. Another intrinsic property is the oxidation reduction potential. Most of the plant derived food are characterized by the presence of reducing sugars, ascorbic acid, phenolics, etc., which supply the reducing groups and thus these foods are reasonably well poised in normal atmospheres. But during processing, these substances may be either destructed or removed, thus making them highly vulnerable for microbial spoilage. Nutrient composition with respect to the fruits and vegetable include carbohydrates, sugars, organic acid, alcohols, which serve as primary source of carbon and energy for the living organisms, and these also include the microorganisms which are responsible for the spoilage. Certain other compounds like ammonia, nitrate, peptides and proteins in the horticultural products are the major nitrogen source for the spoilage microorganisms. Antimicrobials are also present, such as phenolics, chlorogenic acid, coumarins and quercetins, which inhibit the microbes through the disintegration of their outer membrane of the cell wall. An organosulfur compound called allicin with strong broad spectrum antimicrobial properties is present in onion and garlic. Another example is benzoic acid and other organic acid which are widely present in fruits such as cranberries, lemons, etc. Anocin is an antimicrobial present in sour soup and custard apple. Fermentation results in the production of alcohols and acids which are inhibitory to the spoilage microorganism. Therefore, there are also certain features like biological structures. These serve as biological barriers, and these include shell of the nuts, wax on the leaf, rind of the fruits, etc. Collectively, these protect the entry of microorganisms and prevent the spoilage of food. Food processing operations, however, such as cutting, peeling, juicing, removes these biological barriers and therefore makes the food more susceptible to spoilage. So students, you learned about some of the intrinsic factors which are determining the level of spoilage by the microorganisms. However, there are certain extrinsic factors also which are regulating the extent of spoilage of fruits and vegetables. The first and the most important extrinsic factor is the temperature. Temperature, a high temperature increases the rate of metabolism as well as multiplication of the spoilage organisms. It induces a high respiratory rates in the fruit tissue. Second important extrinsic factor is oxygen. A low oxygen will induce putrefaction and fermentative compounds. Relative humidity of the surrounding environment also encourages the growth of spoilage microorganisms. And therefore, based on the water requirement of the microorganisms, they are characterized as osmophiles. Osmophiles means microorganisms which prefer high concentrations of sugar in their growth medium. Example of yeast are Zygosaccharomyces. The second group of microorganisms are xerophiles. As the name indicates, these microorganisms are capable of growing at low water of activity, that is, when the water of activity is less than 0.8. Most of the fungi and halophilic organisms are grouped in the xerophilic category. They can also grow at high salt environment, and example of these organisms are Halobacterium and Flavobacterium. So students, let us know what are the spoilage microbes in fruits and vegetables and their products. A group of microorganisms which include molds, yeast, bacteria are responsible for the spoilage of fruits and vegetable and also their product. The important bacteria are Pseudomonas species, some of the coliforms like enteric bacteria, lactic acid bacteria, spore forming bacteria such as Pseudomonas, alcaligens, Irvinia, Xanthomonas, lactic acid bacteria are also responsible for the spoilage of fruits, vegetables and their product. Among these, Bacillus is the predominant organism, and among the fungi, Fusarium, Alternaria, Penicillium, Orobasidium, Rhizopus and Coletotrichum are the major fungal genera which are found to spoil the fruits, vegetables and their products. So, students, by now you have understood that fungi, bacteria and yeast are the causative agent of the spoilage. Now, let us see what are the important group of molds or the fungi which are chiefly responsible for the spoilage. Most of the fungi are seen as visible growth on the spoiled product. Among these, Mucor is the most common, and this organism is a fast growing organism which will show white to brown or grey coloration. The older colonies of this fungus becomes grey to brown due to development of the spores. Rhizopus is another organism which is responsible for the spoilage. This organism is filamentous and it shows branching hypha which lack the cross walls, and there is another term for such fungus and these are cenocytic. Cenocytic means they do not have the dividing cell walls. They reproduce by forming asexual and sexual spores. Aspergillus is another fungus which is responsible for the spoilage. It possesses the ability to grow when there is high concentration of sugars, salts, etc. Aspergillus species are aerobic and they are found in almost all the oxygen rich environments, and they are either present as a surface growth or they may also be present inside the tissue of the fruits and vegetable. Penicillium is another commonly found spoilage organism. The identifying feature of Penicillium is that the conidiospores are the main dispersal route of the fungi and these are green in color. Sexual reproduction involves the production of ascospores. Trichothecium is another fungus and these colonies are initially white, but with time they become rosy red or pink or orange with age. Botrytis is also an organism which is responsible for the spoilage and it is characterized by hyaline conidia or asexual spores. They also produce highly resistant sclerotia which are able to survive over a period of time. Sclerotinia is another fungus responsible for the spoilage. The important identifying feature of this fungus is lemon shaped conidia with a plug separating the conidia. Another common fungus is Alternaria. This fungus is characterized by dirty grey green mycelium and the conidia are many celled. They may be present as a chain on a conidiophore. Yeast are also spoilage agent of fruits, vegetables and their products. They are most prevalent in fruit concentrates jams, jellies, etc. Some of the important genera of yeast are Pichia, Hansenula, Hanseniospora, Torulopsis, Candida, Cloquera, Trichosporon, Rhodotortula and Saccharomyces. After knowing that the different organisms are responsible for the spoilage, let us know what are the sources of these spoilage organisms which gain access into the fruits and vegetables. There are many sources such as contamination of the seed stock during the production, during the harvesting, post-harvest handling, storage, processing, transportation, distribution, retail display or during the preparations. So, the spoilage organism can gain access into the fruits and vegetables during different stages of the growth, distribution, marketing, preparation, etc. Now, let us see the initial stages of the contamination. During the cultivation, soils which are contaminated with feces, irrigation water which is not clean, reconstituted fungicides, insecticides, dust, insects, manures, wild or domestic animals and human handling. These all contribute to the contamination. Human handling especially is contributing during the post-harvest contamination stage, and the other source is the harvesting equipments. Transport containers, insect, dust, rinse water, transport vehicle and processing equipments are other sources of contamination. During the cultivation process, irrigation water and manure are the major sources of enteric bacteria in the agricultural produce. Fungal spores also contaminate the fruit products and they are mainly distributed through the wind or water. Now, let us understand about the major spoilage types in fresh fruits and vegetables. The first group is bacterial soft rot, which is caused by Erwinia keratovora, and the spoiled food article will show water soaked appearance, soft, mushy consistency and bad odor. Anthracnose, which is caused by fungus Colectotrichum species, is responsible for spotting of fruits and seed pod. Rhizopus rot, which is caused by Rhizopus species, it results in soft mushy rot. It will show cottony growth of the mold with small black dots of sporangia which covers the masses of the food. Alternaria rot is caused by Alternaria species. The affected areas become greenish brown early in the growth and later they become brown or black. The grey mold rot is caused by Botrytis cineraria. It shows grey colored mycelium of the mold and also rotting appearance. Black mold rot is caused by Aspergillus species, and as the name indicates, it shows dark black colored mycelium which is present on the surface and rotting is also seen. There is another rot which is known as stem end rot, which is caused by Alternaria fusarium, and it results in rotting of the fruit stalk and stem ends. Another rot is blossom end rot, which is also caused by Alternaria penicillium species, and the physical appearance is small lesions which gradually enlarges and becomes sunken and turns black and leathery. Another type of spoilage is sliminess or soring, which is caused by a wide variety of saprophytic bacteria, and the symptoms are wet, heating of the vegetable, sliminess appearance. Green mold, which is caused by penicillium, it also develops green colored fungal growth and rotting of the fruits and vegetables. Microorganisms are also responsible for the spoilage of fruits, vegetable juices, and this is primarily alcoholic fermentation, wherein there is oxidation of the carbohydrates to alcohols and subsequently acids are formed by the activity of the film forming yeast, molds and acetic acid bacteria. They also result in the production of lactic acid, slime and off odors. Pasteurized fruit juices are spoiled by Elycyclobacillus species, which produces off odor compound guaiacol in the product. Osmotolerant vegetable juices contain sugar, accessory growth factors, but they are having less amount of acid than the fruit juices. And they also have a lot of accessory growth factors. The pH value is 5 to 5.8 and this is characteristic of the vegetable juices. And these products are acted upon by lactic acid bacteria and these are the primary spoilage organisms, although minor amount of other organisms like yeast and molds are also responsible for the spoilage. Now, let us know what is the causative agent of the spoilage of wine. As you know, wine is an alcoholic beverage which is produced from the fermentation of fruit juices by the activity of yeast like Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Wild yeast present in the grapes causes abnormal fermentation and it yields low alcohol content, high volatile acids like acetic acid, cloudiness and undesirable flavor in the wine. This mainly include Brettanomyces, Hansaniospora, Pichia and Candida. These yeast produce volatile phenols and which is responsible for horsey taint to the wine. Another major type of spoilage of wine is due to ropiness and vinous odor typical of acetic acid bacteria. Acetobacter and Gluconobacter are the chief organisms responsible for these traits. A variety of lactic acid bacteria also cause the spoilage of wines. These are characterized by buttery odor, bitterness, mousy odor and gassiness. Some of the fruits which are dehydrated or some of the vegetables which are dehydrated, they are also spoiled by the microorganism. Examples of dehydrated fruits such as figs, dates and prunes is due to the activity of Monoascus and Zygosaccharomyces yeast. This spoilage is common when the moisture content exceeds 25%. In case of dried vegetables, the spoilage is attributed to the action of Clostridium, Micrococcus, Pseudomonas, Streptococcus, Lactobacillus, Leuconostoc, etc. We are aware that many of the fruits and vegetables are converted into pickles, sauerkraut and other fermented products. For example, a very common fermented product is sauerkraut, which is a lactic acid fermented product produced from shredded cabbage. Red yeast Rhodotortula is responsible for the spoilage. There are other organisms as well, such as slime producing lactobacilli. Some examples are Lactobacillus plantarum and Lactobacillus cucumeris. These organisms cause ropey or slimy sauerkraut. On exposure to air, the film forming yeast are also able to grow, and due to their growth there is an increase in the pH of the sauerkraut, and this increase in the pH is not a desirable feature. And once the pH increases, it makes the conditions conducive for the growth of bacteria, and the bacterial growth causes softening, darkening and development of off flavors. Softening of pickle slices results due to degradation of the pectin, and this degradation is brought about by the activity of molds like Aspergillus, Penicillium and Cladosporium. Sometimes you must have observed that the pickles are black, and the black pickles are due to the production of hydrogen sulfide, which is a product of bacterial action. After understanding that the food like fruits, vegetable and their products are spoiled by microbial growth, so what should be the steps taken to control the spoilage? The first important step is asepsis, that is to follow good agricultural practices. Good agricultural practices greatly help to minimize the microbial load in the fresh produce and the value added products made from them. The chief principle in this is to use clean seed, irrigation water, manure, and the site of cultivation should also be free of the spoilage microorganisms. And therefore, there are a set of guidelines on good agricultural practices which have been published by Codex Alimentarius. There are certain diseases which are acquired during the marketing process, and these are an extension of the contamination from the field, and pre-harvest spray with safe fungicides can take care of this problem to a large extent. Another important issue is the use of composted manure, in which the temperature of the compost should be in the thermophilic range, that is 55 to 75 degrees C, for at least a period of 3 to 15 days. During this process, most of the spoilage pathogenic organisms are killed. Another way to minimize the damage due to spoilage is to follow good handling practices, which is abbreviated as GHP. This involves removal of damaged and decayed produce, because these are having significantly high inoculum than the undamaged counterparts. Therefore, quality sorting and culling is an effective asepsis method to prevent the spread of spoilage organism from the damaged to the undamaged products. In this direction, there is another technique which is known as modified atmosphere packaging. This is an integral component of GHP guidelines for the fresh produce. High carbon dioxide atmosphere inhibits the spoilage by the aerobics microorganisms such as fungi, bacteria species. Pseudomonas, bacillus, moraxella, etc. are also inhibited in the prevalent conditions. The mode of action is thought to be due to changes occurring in the cellular pH, cell membrane, disruption and fluidity levels, etc. There are also certain corrective measures such as washing and sanitizing. The surface microflora can be removed effectively by resorting to a proper washing method. In this direction, the use of hot water or steam at a temperature of 48 to 63 degrees Celsius for a period of 1 to 2 minutes is effective. It effectively reduces the fungal decay of fruits and vegetables. Another method followed commonly is the use of chlorine, which is also a very common sanitizer. Corrective measures also include the use of ozone, and ozone does not result in residual toxicity in the produce. Some more examples of the sanitizing compounds are peroxyacetic acid, which is approved by US FDA and it exhibits a broad spectrum antimicrobial activity. Hydrogen peroxide, sodium polyphosphate, organic acids and electrolyzed oxidizing water are some other examples used commonly. UV light or irradiation with UV in the range of wavelength 200 to 280 nanometer is also found to be effective, and another method is to reduce the water activity. Use of fungicides, antimicrobial food additives are also helpful in reducing the spoilage of the food products. However, these days certain novel methods such as non-thermal methods which involve high hydrostatic pressure abbreviated as HPP is also utilized. During this process, the food is subjected to a pressure of high pressure, that is 100 to 800 megapascal, and exposure time ranges from milliseconds pulse to over 20 minutes. During this process, most of the spores of the fungi and bacteria are inactivated. Pulsed electric field, abbreviated as PEF, is also utilized to reduce the microbial load. PEF applies high voltage pulses which ranges from 20 to 80 kilowatt per centimeter to the food which is located between a series of electrode pairs. The applied electric field causes the cellular membrane disruption and thereby it inactivates the microorganism. This technology is useful in preventing the spoilage of liquid food. Another technology is use of ultrasonic waves. Ultrasounds of the frequency more than 20 kilohertz induces micromechanical shocks and causes the disruption of cellular components, and on this principle the technology is based and it is effective in reducing the microbial load. Therefore, one can utilize a variety of methods to inactivate, destroy the microbial spoilage load from the food products. Another approach is to use antagonistic microorganisms which are broadly called as biocontrol agent. One example is lactic acid bacteria, because these organisms are GRAS, generally recommended as safe, and they produce certain antimicrobial compounds like bacteriocins, hydrogen peroxide, organic acids and diacetyl. Pseudomonas putida is also effective for controlling soft potato rot. Candida sac, a yeast, Bacillus subtilis bacterium, their formulations are also being used as biocontrol agent, and these are available by various trade names in the market. These are all collectively helpful in reducing the post-harvest diseases of the fruits, vegetable and their products. So, students, let us sum up. As you know, fruits and vegetables in their raw as well as their value added products are rich in various nutrients, and therefore they are highly susceptible to the spoilage by various type of microorganisms. These microorganisms are of different taxonomic groups such as bacteria, yeast, mold, and depending on the intrinsic nature of the food and the prevailing extrinsic factors in the storage environment, the extent of spoilage is regulated. Preventing the entry of microorganism in the food is the best way for extending the shelf life in terms of economic and public health also. Decontamination can also be achieved by physical sanitizers, biological means. Novel non-thermal methods are also being utilized to achieve good quality of the food product. Thank you.